Hello, everyone, and you're all very welcome to this webinar, the Midwest Series in partnership with Mental Health Ireland. So today's topic is on living well with mental health challenges. So my name is Cillian, and I'm the Peer Education, Training and Development Officer with Midwest ARIES. And I'm delighted to be joined by some of my colleagues here today, who I'll get to introduce themselves in a couple of seconds. And I just want to say a big thank you to Mental Health Ireland for the ongoing partnership for these webinar series over the last couple of months as well. It's great to get a wide range of topics covered over the last number of months as well. So we'll have a great discussion today on living well with mental health challenges. And I suppose just to talk about the topic today, I suppose we all kind of can face different challenges in our life. And I suppose we'll be talking about the daily anxiety that we all face, the different challenges that we may face in our day-to-day life going on an ongoing basis, or as well as anything else. So I think it's really important just to note that we'll have a broad discussion around living well with mental health challenges as well. So that's really important to note. So the aim of this webinar on living well with mental health challenges is to explore personal recovery and mental health, what that looks like, and how we can still live a fulfilling life whilst managing our own mental health challenges as well. So I'm sure we all have our own practical well-being strategies that we can implement into our daily lives. So we'll have a good conversation about the strategies that we use, like our own personal recovery toolkit, our own well-being strategies that we incorporate into our day-to-day life as well. Just before we begin, I'm just going to share a little bit about Midwest ARIES if you're tuning into these webinars for the very first time. The ARIES part of Midwest ARIES stands for Advancing Recovery in Ireland Education Service, and we specialise in recovery education and well-being and mental health. And we cover the Midwest region in Clare, Limerick and North Tipperary. We currently run workshops online in these webinars as well, and we're slowly transitioning back face-to-face with our workshops as well. Just a bit on the housekeeping for this webinar. It'll be 1 hour in duration and it will be a panel discussion. So as you can see on the bottom of your screen, you'll see a Q&A box. So if you want to preload some questions in for when we'll get through the questions throughout the webinar, hopefully I'll be able to manage and get through all of them throughout the course of the webinar itself. So this will be recorded as well and it will be uploaded on our YouTube channel. And it'll also be put as a podcast on Anchor FM as well for our ongoing wellness panel series as well. So we'll also finish with a guided meditation. It's called Rewrite Your Day. So it's a nice one just to finish off these webinars. And we always finish with a nice guided meditation for the webinar series as well. So I think I've covered everything. I'd just like to invite my colleagues to turn on their cameras and unmute themselves, and I might just do a round of introduction. And Noelle, I think you're there as well with the camera. If you want to turn it on in a second, thanks a million. Great stuff. So thanks to my colleagues, Mike, Margaret, Mags, and Noelle for joining me today for this webinar. And I'll get maybe Mike to introduce himself first, and just perfect. Thanks a million.
Thanks, Cillian. I know we had a couple of people from Mental Health Ireland to be on today, and it's nice that we're still able to do it, I suppose, with illness. Unfortunately, it happens. So it's not just people have mental health challenges, people have physical health challenges as well. But yeah, I'm the manager with Midwest ARIES, delighted to be here. I'm a regular attendee of these, but as you can probably tell, I love chatting, so thanks, Cillian.
Great stuff, Mike. It's great to have you here. You're a regular on these webinars, so it's great to have your input as well for today's webinar. So thanks a million. Margaret, we might come to you if that's okay.
Thanks, Cillian. I'm Margaret. I'm Education Training Development Officer here at Midwest ARIES. I'm delighted to be on this side of the desk today. Really looking forward to it. And yeah, we should be an interesting conversations. I always love these webinars. You never know what's going to come out in the wash. And as Cillian said, get the questions in there. It'd be great to see what comes out. So thanks, Cillian.
Great. Thanks a million, Margaret. Great to have you on board. And in the opposite role now, me hosting and you as a panelist. So it's great. So thanks a million. Mags, we might come to yourself next.
Yeah, thanks, Cillian. I'm a recovery education facilitator with Midwest ARIES. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the chat with the rest of my colleagues today. Yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks, Cillian.
Great. Thanks a million, Mags. And Noelle, we'll come to you finally. Unmute there. Perfect.
Yeah, sorry, my thing gets a bit sluggish. Yeah, so I'm Noelle and I'm recovery education facilitator at Midwest ARIES. Yeah, nice to be on the panel today and having a chat about mental health and strategies we have for ourselves. you always learn from everyone in the room, same as our workshops. So looking forward to the discussion. Cillian, thanks.
Perfect. Thanks a million, Noelle. It's great to have you here. And like you said, we're just going to have a great discussion. So a broad discussion on living well with mental health challenges. So I suppose we'll hit first with the first question. I know there's one or two questions, I think, in the chat already, or the Q&A section. So I might just go with, what does living well with mental health challenges look like to you? And Mike, I'll start with yourself, if that's okay. Thanks a million.
Thanks, Cillian. Yeah, and I suppose it's, well, when we talk about mental health challenges, I suppose in the first case, I suppose for everybody will experience challenges at some stage in their life. And as I was saying, nobody gets a free pass. So I suppose in terms of this conversation, it's like there's, and again, you don't want to be mentioning this when it comes to psychiatric assessments, but there is like a scale, you know, or, you know, different levels at different times for different people. So living well is the ability to cope. And for some of us, myself included, sometimes when my own resources don't kick in or I can't get by, I need to use the services. I need to use medication, you know, or I need to, you know, attend counseling, you know. So some people, you know, so it's about living well and knowing when you need resources to enable you to live well, you know, because I think even if some of us are struggling in certain areas of our lives, we'll probably always find some area where we're probably, you know, doing okay, you know, if we were to actually break down holistically what we look like as individuals and what our life is like. So anyway, I better stop and give somebody else a chance.
No, that's great, Mike. Really good insight, I think, as well, because it's about that balancing act of our own mental health and physical health as well, and maybe having the self-awareness as well around it when things may be breaking down a little bit, and just knowing those signs and maybe the triggers as well, that maybe things are not going the way they should be, or that's planned or whatever else, and just having that toolkit, maybe those well-being strategies to dip in and dip out of at different stages for our own mental health and well-being. So yeah, perfect. So Mags, will I come to you next? Same question. Would you want me to repeat the question? Are you okay?
You mentioned 3 words there, and that there was awareness, tools, and triggers. And I suppose for me, that would be very important. I've got to the stage now where I know I'm aware of what I need and what I don't need. And I think that's how I kind of get up every day and do my work and all of that. But I'm also aware that I need support. I'm a very, very independent. I'm not one that would go for support straight away, but I now have the awareness that we all need support and to go for that support. So I think if you have challenges and if you find it a small bit tough, get your support and get your help.
Brilliant. That's so important, Mags. I think just having, even if it's 1 or 2 people in your own life that have just a good support network around you that you can trust and confide in at different stages, that's really important. So great insight again. Margaret, I'll come to you next. That's okay. Same question.
No problem. Yeah, already we're covering so much so quickly. It's amazing. But I suppose just reflecting on my own kind of coping strategies. Again, Mike, you were talking about the coping piece. For me, it's about making positive choices in my life and living life with positivity where I can. That's not always easy. I mean, given what's happening at the moment in the world, I think we're all feeling that extra bit of stress, whether it's COVID numbers, Ukraine. Obviously, a lot of people are under a lot of pressure economically with the way, you know, things are moving in terms of inflation. So another thing I have to do really is quieten my mind in some way, because I can really just go down the rabbit hole with stuff. So it's using things like mindfulness, you know, guided meditations I find are really useful. It just helps. So yeah, I suppose for me it is living well is about making positive choices and trying to turn down the negativity. There's a lot of negativity in the world at the moment, just by virtue of what's happening in the world. But to try and kind of tune those voices out and try and see the goodness in your life and the positive stuff that I am doing well, and you know, yeah, make that force, you know, at the forefront of my life rather than all the negativity. I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely, Margaret. Really important. I think you touched on, I suppose the thought process maybe about reframing that mind frame if some negative influence are coming in, the news or whatever it may be, and trying to switch it to more positive things that we're all doing in our day to day. And it's trying to, again, I think it comes back to that self-awareness around it, that we are doing well, we're progressing, we should be proud of ourselves and all the good things that we're doing each day. And it comes back, like I do myself, is practicing gratitude, writing down a couple of things each day that are going well, and it has just transformed my own life really over the last number of years, and turned off, like you kind of mentioned, that mind frame of negativity maybe from different stages as well. So it's really helped me. Noelle, I might come to you next if that's okay, just on the question. That's okay.
Yeah, I suppose just touching on something Mike said there as well, because I'd never thought really about this as much until we started doing a workshop on our dimensions, all our dimensions and you know, like mental health challenges, you just think of mentally how you're doing and how your mind is doing and that. But, you know, it's taken me a long time to realize that, you know, I have to look at all aspects of my life and where I'm falling down or where I mightn't be doing so well in one aspect or one dimension of my area, whether it's emotional or social, whatever. But that's impacting on my mental health. So my mental health isn't just about not being able to cope with things or not, you know, it's about are all aspects of my life doing well, and where do I need to work on that improves my well-being and my mental health. And so my awareness around that and making those, you know, am I making those right positive choices in those other areas that will impact on that will help me to live well, if that makes sense. So it's not, to me, I always thought my mental health was just about my mind, minding my mind, but it's not. It's about minding all areas in my life, which will help improve my mind and my mental health then. But making the right choices with that, those right positive choices along the way, and asking myself those questions, you know, on my thoughts and my moods as I do that, if that makes sense.
That's really good, Noelle. I think it's a balance as well, like kind of we mentioned earlier on, but it's that holistic approach as well, like different things that we can do that will have that positive impact on our well-being. And it just, for our physical, mental health, I think it has that compound ripple effect. When we do something for our physical health, it's going to help our mental health at the same time as well. So it's just that knock-on effect over time. I know there's questions coming in there, and I will get to them in a second. And so I might just go and ask each panelist, have you any tools or strategies that you use in your own life that help your mental health and well-being on a daily or a weekly basis? And yeah, I might just throw that out there, and we might come to Mags first, if that's okay.
Thanks, Cillian. I suppose what's important to me is to be able to function every day and to do my work and all of that. And then what's important to me is to have my own space and have my own free time to do what I like to do. And I suppose it's very important to like and to enjoy your free time and to do something you like. So for me, it's just getting out into nature, walking. Animals are a huge part of I suppose who I am and what I do. So for me, it's just my environment around me. It's not so much people, it's just my environment around me, to take in what's around me and to enjoy that. So I think that's one of the tools I kind of use every day, is to get out, even if it's only for, you might be working 9 to 5, just get out for a cup of coffee in the morning, get up that extra bit early, just to sit out, the weather is nice, sit out for the cup of coffee, and to get out again in the evening time. So I think fresh air, you can't beat a bit of fresh air, and it's just nice to get out and to enjoy what's around you as well. And you needn't be going, you know, on long journeys. You can just stay within your own area and enjoy what you have.
Really good, Mags. I like that, because it's just being mindful and being in the present moment and just enjoying where you are at that present moment, that external environment, going out in nature and doing different walks as well. So great stuff. Mike, might come to yourself next. Any well-being tools or strategies? Thanks.
Well, yeah, and I suppose the strategy I have, because again, it's there in the Q&A, and how do you manage and organize them? So when you have them and the signs and plans, and I suppose for me, I always have used the example of, you know, and the phrase was used earlier on there, when things are breaking down. And to be honest with you, when I'm struggling or in the downward spiral, I don't see it. I'm oblivious. So it's really important. So one of the most useful things I have is what's called a spotter. So it's somebody who knows me very well, who even though I think I'm doing everything right, I'm doing the walking in the woods, I'm eating right, I'm doing all the things that we should be doing, but sometimes it just doesn't work. And so therefore it is, when is extra action required? So it's when to have somebody who knows me well enough where I can have the conversation with when I am well, is to say, when you see me in the downward spiral, intervene when I reach this point. And any time that has happened for me, it's been a light bulb moment, because, oh, I never noticed. And all it is you're giving someone permission. So, and all they have to say is, remember when we had this conversation, about having a spotter? You've crossed the line, end the conversation, but that's the intervention. So you can have all your strategies and everything, but unless it comes back to that awareness piece for me, as I said, I'm just oblivious when I'm like that. Yeah.
Brilliant, Mike. I really like that. The spotter, it's actually so relevant. I think just having, again, that support network around you. You can notice something if you were, maybe like you mentioned, were oblivious to what was going on at a particular time as well. So having a spotter, really, really good stuff. Margaret, we might come to yourself.
Yeah, and I just want to come back in on that, Mike, because I've heard Mike say that before, and it's something that has sat with me for a long time. It's just so important because, if you lose that self-awareness, and sometimes you can become overwhelmed that you're not seeing the wood for the trees, and just having that so useful. And it could be one person, it could be multiple people, it could be, somebody really close to you, or just a close friend, or somebody in your family. So I think that's a really worthwhile piece of advice for myself. And I'll just go back to that in terms of mindfulness, meditation. It doesn't work for everybody. And again, this is something that Mike has said before, not to quote you, Mike, but it has, again, another thing that sat with me, because I do use it a lot, is the distraction piece as well, the mindlessness, where you're doing something, whether it's a piece of creativity that kind of takes you out of yourself. And when you're just in that kind of that having a really bad day. But I suppose what's come out of this conversation, all I'm hearing is just being in tune with yourself, checking in with yourself. How are you actually feeling? And acknowledging that. And sometimes you have really bad days, and that's okay. It's the choices that you make when you're having those bad days. That's the important thing. The bad days will come. But what are you going to do to manage and just get through that day? And one thing I always say to myself is, eventually this day is going to be over. And isn't it amazing that I have a chance to get it right, maybe tomorrow or maybe next week, but at least I'm going to stick around and see what happens next. So that's, yeah.
Really good, Margaret. I like that. And just to touch on that, I suppose the moments are temporary when we're going through a difficulty as well, and they will pass over time. Might be a day or a couple of days, but it's, again, like you said, Margaret, it's being in tune with how you're feeling, checking in, asking yourself, how am I feeling today? And doing the positive things that that are unique to each individual, that will have that good effect on your well-being and mental health. Going out for a walk, doing the mindfulness, practicing gratitude, exercise, whatever it may be for each individual. We're all different. Doing something creative, listening to music, a favorite song. The list is endless. So it's unique to each individual at the same time. So I just might touch on the question that was in the Q&A section. So I might come back to it and ask you, Noelle, if that's okay. So I'll just read it out. So the question was from someone: how do you manage, organize all these, I suppose, tools, triggers, signs, and plans? Would you be okay with taking that question,
Yeah.
like the well-being strategies?
I was just thinking, because I was just thinking, about that question, and I was thinking, like, none of this is rocket science. We all know what we have to do, but the thing is, like, it's like everything in life. The way I look at it now is, I have to work on myself. I have no choice. No one's going to do it for me, So you have to fit in that time. You have to do it for yourself, and it's easy to do it when you are in a good place. It's a lot easier to go out for the walk. We know all the tools that we can use, and it's a lot harder. But to me, is doing it when I'm really not great. Even if it doesn't work, it's just the doing of it and know that I've tried, and then I can refresh tomorrow. Press that refresh button tomorrow. It's not permanent, and I think that's what keeps me going, because, like, I work on everything else, other aspects of my life. Why wouldn't I work on minding myself, you know. And I think we can get a bit lazy about that, or not, maybe lazy isn't the right word, but we can get a bit complacent about it, I suppose, and you know, think like you have to work on every area in your life, and your mental health is no different. You have to put in the effort. You have to put in it. Like I said, it's not always going to work, but just do the effort anyway. And the one key thing for me that I keep coming back to, especially this year, is joy. The word joy. Anything I do, I have to have joy in it. Where's the joy in it? I ask myself that, because I think we've lost that sense of joy in things. And I find that if I just think, well, what's going to give me joy? It kind of gives me a better picture, and I'll do something that I like then. But it has to bring me joy. And joy is such a small word, but it's a huge impact on you. So that's my advice.
It's brilliant, Noelle, bringing joy into your life, and you probably know yourself what you do for yourself on a daily basis as well. So that's really, really good. So I really like that.
And can I just add one more thing?
Yeah,
sorry.
Of course you can.
Like we talk about journaling and gratitude and that, you know, and I practice that every day. But someone had mentioned lately they do a mood diary, and I just thought that was a really good, effective one of writing down how, you know, what your mood is like each day, or, you know, and then you're taking back control of that, and you can see, well, why, you know, what caused that to happen and what you can do about it. So then you can make the choice, but it's bringing back that control back to yourself then, because it comes down to you. And I just thought that was a nice one. I'd never used one.
Yeah, it's like having an action plan around it. Really, you
Yeah.
can dip into different things at different stages when things aren't going as well. So yeah, that's great, Noelle. There's just a question in, it's probably aimed towards Margaret here. Mindless activity, brilliant. Any more examples of those? Would that be okay to answer, Margaret? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it can be anything from, and I'm just thinking from my own perspective, it can be just having some, I know it sounds funny, dancing around the kitchen, you know, with disco music on. It can be as mindless as that. Just something that's going to just take you out of your head. Knitting is something that, like, because again, it's just engaging in, you know, a square of knitting and just repeating the pattern every time. It just, again, outside the head. I did something yesterday, actually, and I did it for my son who's away, and I was out in the garden and all I could hear was birdsong. And it just struck me, and it's very unusual sometimes, you know, because you can kind of sometimes hear traffic and stuff, but it was just clicking and, you know, all sorts of weird little, and then it was joy, Noelle, you know, in a nutshell. And then the bees came in, and I started really listening and going down deep into almost the layers of sound, and I recorded it, only a minute of it. And I sent it to him, and it was amazing. Like, he was like, God, that's amazing, you know. And it brought him back into my space. It was a small little thing. I did it for him, but really it helped me. It really brought me in, and it was just a moment. And that's all it is. It's just a moment. So mindlessness, whatever it looks like for you, you know, and I think there is a thin line between mindful and mindless. It's thinking without effort a lot of the time. And it's so hard to do. And it feels so good.
I can't resist coming in here, Margaret, because again, we talk about this all the time, and it's about, like, one of my favorite lines, and I hope there's no line managers listening in here, because one of my favorite pastimes is staring out the window. Nothingness. I described yesterday here in work as a child in school where my engagement consisted of watching the shadow on the wall, locked onto it. This was mindfulness of the best kind. I was in school though, and I used to follow the shadow across the wall all day, locked onto it until it was time to go home. And it was complete dissociation, disconnection, mindlessness. I should have been learning, but I wasn't. You know, did it affect me in any way negatively? Don't think so. And and I suppose probably so. The message is, well, yes, it's that emptiness, because while we've been talking a lot around the doing, sometimes we need to do nothing. It's to not have people drawing on us, not even stepping back from sometimes the things we enjoy, which is, and I know you touched on the joy, Noelle, as well, which is very important. But sometimes just give ourselves a break, sit with it. Because I think, like, as you said, Margaret, like, kind of, you know, you know, in particular for anyone who was literally losing the will to live, sure, I'll give it another week. You know, and sure, I'll hang in there and see what happens, because sometimes when we're doing all the right things, we're not actually feeling it. And, you know, so what will sustain us in that, particularly if we're using the services, is messages of hope from staff or the people around us when we are not feeling it, to say, you can get through this. You know, I have absolute belief in you. I am hopeful you would get better. And when those messages are communicated to you, well, that's where the energy comes from. There was you know, it came in there about demotivation there in the chat. So sometimes so when we can't motivate ourselves, like, who around us can motivate us? You know, and it's like, I suppose, even in our workshops, I often say to people, you know, name a strength. And they might say, God, I have no strengths. And all I say to the other people in the room, does anyone know this person? And say, and if you do, what are their strengths? And they'll rattle it off: a great friend, a great supporter, a great listener. You know, because sometimes we can't see it for ourselves, particularly when we're very low. So it is back to that importance of being kind to ourselves, that self-compassion. And there's times when we have to rely on others, you know. So, and I love what you said, like, give it a week, you know. Hang in there, you know. So anyway, I went off on one.
No, I think that was brilliant, Mike. I think again, it comes back to that awareness around it. Even when we're in the midst of something, it can be difficult to notice our strengths or talents or whatever it is. But having other people recognize it can give us that boost around that particular time as well. So I really like that. That's great. And I think you kind of touched on the question that was in the chat there. What motivates you to keep going and doing all the things to keep well? I sometimes feel demotivated. Does anyone else want to come in there on that? Noelle or Mags, would you like to come in?
I think it's okay to feel demotivated, you know, like Mike said, you can't keep going all the time. Like, no one is you know, like, our minds aren't meant to be busy like that all the time, you know. And I think if you're feeling a bit like that, just have the awareness, accept where you are at that moment. I think acceptance is a big part of it, because if you can accept it, accept where you are, then you can cope better, you can deal with it, because it comes back to the self-compassion bit Mike was talking about then, because then you're not so hard on yourself, and to be kind to yourself. But it's okay to be demotivated. We're not always motivated. And just, you know, it will come. Just give yourself time, and give yourself that space and time to get back to that point, and you will get there. And that's where, I suppose, like Margaret and Mike were saying, other people, you know, can lift that for you a bit, and carry that bit of hope for you, and that bit of guidance to help you. But it's okay, you know.
Absolutely, Noelle. I think nobody is motivated 24/7, 365 days a year. It comes and fleets and whatever else, just up and down all the time. So I think it's just rest and recharging is part of the plan and part of the journey as well. So that's really important, just to note that as well, that motivation for me dips all the time, but I just try and do the small bit, do the one step that will take me to the next step, and it might be the next day that I might do something, or the following week as well. So just being kind to yourself. And Mike has often mentioned honoring yourself as well, Mike, as well. You mentioned in previous webinars as well, and just being kind and compassionate to yourself as well at the same time. So yeah, there's more questions in the chat. Oh, Margaret, sorry, you got your hand up there. Work away.
It was just, and actually you've already said it, but it was that what just popped into my head was Noelle was talking, was that whole thing of being judgmental, you know, around yourself and kind of kicking yourself. It's really hard, I know, from my own, you know, when you just don't feel it. And you know, sometimes you can, what they say, you know, fake it till you make it, but sometimes there just isn't any, you know, gas left in the tank. And as Noelle said, that's okay, but just hang in there, and you know, something may happen that just will spark. And sometimes for me, it is about giving myself a bit of a kick to, as you said, Cillian, do something small that just might take you to the next step. But again, it's effort, and sometimes you just don't have that ability to do anything that takes effort. But it's just the judgmental piece, because it's not helpful, and actually it can just, for me, can put me into a spiral. And so I really need to pull myself out of that if it happens. Thanks.
Great, brilliant. Thanks a million, Margaret. I think there's more questions in the chat there, and it's just one that stares: how do you manage your mental health at work? So Mags, we might go to you if that's okay, if you're okay to answer. I know you kind of mentioned just the the stuff you do in your free time. So maybe even during the working week, is there anything you do that's unique to yourself? Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Cillian. I suppose, yeah, in the job that we're involved in, we're talking about mental health for 3 or 4 days of the week. And I suppose the best thing is the workshops that we deliver, the participants, we learn every day. So you just learn and you gather stuff every day that any of us can use. You know, we all have our bad days and our good days when it comes to working as well. But there's always tomorrow. You know, I always think I never, you know, if I have a problem, I'll share it with my colleagues and we'll have a chat about it. We never kind of keep anything from each other either. We can kind of always share stuff to see can we get a solution or whatever. So I suppose, yeah, but I suppose an important thing for me to do is when I'm turning off the computer at 5 o'clock or whatever time I'm turning it off, that's it until the following day. And then the weekend is there and that's it until Tuesday morning again. So try and, I suppose, separate as well. I tried to separate work from other parts of my life as well.
Great stuff, Mags. And I suppose the boundaries around it as well, that you're not working when you're supposed to have in your free time as well. And that's really important, just to have that structure in life and just to enjoy your free time when you're off of work as well. But anyone else want to come in on that about how to sorry.
I might come in. I just come in. Like, I just think one thing I've learned, especially through this work, is communication is so important. You know, have the honest, open communication and reflect then, you know, to take that time to reflect at the end of each day, or, you know, like we do reflection after our workshops. And, you know, there is benefit to that, like just to talk things out, because it's in the moment present when it's happened, and then you can move away from it. And I think that really helps it, rather than holding on to something and letting it boil over. And the other thing I think is just you have to have a bit of humor as well. Like, you have to have humor because, you know, life is difficult enough, and all areas of life are going to be difficult. So no matter what aspect of your life, you have to bring a bit of humor into it. Yeah.
Brilliant, Noelle. That's so important. Just bringing that, like you mentioned earlier on, that joy and then that humor as well at the same time in our working life and our day-to-day lifestyles. So that just makes things easier and makes things more rewarding as well at the same time. So really like that. Margaret, do you want to come in there on the managing mental health at work? And then we might move on to the next question.
Yeah, just I suppose just to reiterate, I think, Noelle, you're on the money there in terms of just keeping your humor. And I think it's pretty difficult, I suppose, in our situation, because we're a remote team largely. That is a challenge, to keep those connections and trying to keep up that honesty in the communication, because it is really difficult. Boundaries are huge again if you're working remotely. You know, making sure that, you know, everything is turned off, that, you know, that you're out of work now and now you're home. And if you're working from home, that can be a challenge as well. So that's something to manage and just be aware of as well. Yeah, just keep talking to each other. And if you're having difficulty, say it. You know, don't. And 9 times out of 10, if somebody says, I'm having problems with this, you can be guaranteed somebody else thinking the same thing or has had that experience, and it's sharing that. So yeah, Noelle's on the money in terms of that.
Great stuff, Margaret. And it just ties nicely into questions in the Q&A as well. It's when you manage your mental health, does that influence the people around you? How and why? This is probably more maybe your personal life or even our work life as well at the same time. So Mike, do you want to come in there on that one?
Yeah, I'll come in there. And on the previous one there, where it says you use your mental health experience as part of your work in mental health, that's an achievement. Thanks. What are your thoughts? So I suppose for us, we exist because we are part of the change that's taken place in the mental health services. We're not an outlier. We're part of the mental health services here in the Midwest. And so that comes back to ask, and I suppose it's our motto here is what happens when you ask people, you know, so that was so we came from a needs analysis. What do people want in the Midwest as regards, you know, managing their mental health? And that was where where this came from, you know, so we are a part of it. And one of the most important things is there's a national framework there where it values the lived experience of everybody. And that's what we bring to the work. And again, you know, as Mags mentioned earlier, it's the shared learning by rocking up to work. And I suppose there's an open and an honesty in it. So again, it's still early days in that change of how the mental health services work. So again, I know I'm moving sideways and don't want to be getting into the organizational stuff, but it does come back to, you know, the mental health services, the people who work in service, we're all people. You know, and we're all people with the same struggles, managing COVID, managing what's happening in Ukraine, all the negative stuff on social media. How are we getting by, supporting our families and getting on with it? So there's massive challenges for us all. And I suppose once we have an openness and an honesty, you know, in sharing what works for us, and I suppose we focus on the recovery piece, what works. We don't go to tell me all about, like, I used to really annoy me years ago, Gabe Byrne on the Late Show. He could have a brilliant guest on and he'll come with, we know you had it bad. Tell us how bad it was. You know, so it was kind of, but that's how we're, so no, it's look at the good stuff. What works? How can we improve? How can we make it better? Make the service better, make ourselves better. As one of our former facilitators here, as his line was, you don't have to be mentally ill to get better. You know, and I think that's brilliant. But what I also like about this work as well, when we focus on the good stuff, because while yes, and particularly when we're unwell, it's to be able to be careful not to overshare, because we all, while yes, we're using our story, but we also, so in that we have, I suppose, our you know, our public life, you know, our professional life, but we also have a private life. So the stuff not up for consideration, the stuff not, you know, up for discussion, whereas, yes, it's important that we speak about it, but it must be done in the right way with the right people. Otherwise, you know, we can become harmed by the process. You know, so again, it's just that little bit, I suppose, for people who are struggling. Make sure you have the right people in your life and choose the right people, you know. So anyway, I probably gone all over the place to get an answer in that question.
That's brilliant.
Margaret has her hand up.
Yeah, perfect, Margaret. Mike, come to you. Thanks, Mike, for all that. It was brilliant. Great insight again. So Margaret, you want to come in there?
Yeah, and it's just kind of following up on kind of things that Mike said in terms of and that question around working in mental health, and does it impact, you know, and with, you know, your family, and I can't remember exactly what it said, but I think what's really interesting about this job, because we're front and center thinking about mental health all the time and the positive aspects of mental health, for me, it makes me more aware of my mental health and self-care. I think within this job and doing the job that we do, I think it's absolutely vital that we do look after ourselves and that we don't overstretch ourselves, or, as Mike rightly said, overshare. It's really, really important, because it's our story. And we found that even within our workshops, what's brilliant is that peer-to-peer learning piece where, you know, we put the questions. That's really, if you think about it, it's a very simple model. What happens when you ask people, Mike? We put the questions, and then the group comes together, they consider it, they reflect on it, and then they bring all that shared learning into the room. It's so powerful. And every time you do a workshop, every time we've, you know, when it's finished, I feel I know so much more, not just about the subject, but about myself. How did I react to it? You know, but it definitely makes me much more aware of self-care, you know, as I said, thinking positively and building in that into my daily life. But it's a strange job that we do. It's a really powerful job, but it does impact on us, and we do need to be, for good and bad, and most of it's really good, but we just need to be careful and to be really mindful of ourselves.
Yeah, really good, Margaret. I think that what you kind of said there, being mindful of the work and what we're doing day to day, because it can have an effect. It can have a negative impact, but we're trying to spread that positivity at the same time as well. So it's a balancing act again, you know. So Noelle, I know you want to come in, so I think you have your hand up.
Yeah,
there.
no, I just add on to what Margaret was saying, and it was just so true. And like, we just done a face-to-face one recently, and what it was my first face-to-face one, and what I found from it is, you know, you kind of, us working in this area, you kind of do feel like a sense of responsibility, a sense of ownership. But when you did it, like when I just done the face-to-face one, I realized that the ownership is in the room to the people who attend. And it was just really great to see that, you're just there to guide, but to facilitate, but the ownership is belong to the people who are there to work on themselves, who are interested in recovery, who have something to say and who want to share it with others. And there's a lot of power in that, I think, and that's what, and I think just going on then for working in it ourselves, like Margaret was saying, from working in it, it's consciously in your mind the whole time. So you're consciously, I think, making the effort to ensure you're doing what you're saying. You're not just saying this to other people, this is what you should do, this is what I do. You are actually putting into practice. And it reminds you of that. And that's the one thing I love about it. So it makes me more mentally aware of my own needs, if that makes sense.
Yeah, really good, Noelle. It's that, I suppose that's a reminder on a daily basis when we are in the working world of mental health, that we have to do things for our own mental health to mind ourselves and do the things that will, again, like I keep coming back to, that positive impact on our own well-being. So it's really, really important. So I know there's one more question in the chat there. So it is, do you think that the COVID pandemic has increased mental health service users? So does anyone want to come in on that? I won't put anyone on the spot now, but
yeah,
Mike,
well,
I know you.
I suppose for statistically, the answer is I don't know. And I don't. But I think, has it affected people's mental health and the population as a whole? Absolutely. Has it affected mine? Yes. I can only say now, when I look back at over the Christmas, I was really struggling because from the first lockdown, all of the things that I was accessing to manage my mental health because of the pandemic, I couldn't access because of the restrictions. And I went into a downward spiral. And even with the lift last summer of restrictions and the easing of the restrictions somewhat, I didn't recover. So, and then when I hit the winter again, which is not a good time for me, I went further down over the Christmas and over the winter. And, and I suppose I don't want to sound over dramatic, but there was nights when, I went to bed and I couldn't care less if I didn't wake up in the morning. But come back to what Margaret said, give it a week. Right now, it actually crossed my mind yesterday. Geez, I've loads to do and stuff I'm looking forward to. I'd hate to drop dead right now. I'd be really annoyed with myself. So like Ian, when you look at from like Christmas to now, it's a short space of time. But in my mind, I'm in a completely different place. So sometimes the do nothing, watching the shadow on the wall, staring out the window, just wait, it can pass. Without having to work overly hard at it. So again, yes is the answer as far as I'm concerned. Has it affected people? Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Cillian.
No worries, Mike. Great stuff. And I think, like you said, these things will pass when we're going through difficulties. It's just holding out and having that hope and optimism that things will get better over time as well. I know there's more questions coming in. So
Noelle has her hand up there as well.
Yeah, I might go to Noelle. Yeah,
No,
well,
no,
I'll go to
actually,
first,
it was just something that came up in a workshop, which just made it interesting, related kind of to this question that just came back to me, was that I never looked at it this way, but it was a group of people in the workshop were saying, when we were talking about COVID and how it affects people, and they were saying that they felt that it actually, people who were using the service all along and who were dealing with issues all along coped better because they've already, had tools. They know kind of, even though it was still difficult in them, but they still had strategies there, could dip into people. People who never suffered with anything, COVID hit, and then all of a sudden they're hit with this, these challenges that they've never had to face, and that they found it way more difficult and had a lot more struggles with it through COVID. So it was just a really interesting point. I just wanted to add that there. So so through COVID, I think it's caused a lot more challenges for people who might never have had to deal with those challenges before. So maybe there's a better understanding around mental health because of that as well, So yeah, I just want to add that.
Absolutely. Again, the understanding around it of different challenges that we may have faced, that we went through many lockdowns and coming out the other side of it as well, and the challenges that we're kind of transitioning and pivoting and adapting all the time at the same time. So it's a constant cycle, I suppose you want to call it as well. So I know we're coming close to the meditation time. So would it be okay for everyone if I just play the meditation now, and then I have one more question for all the panelists before we close up as well. Would that be okay with everyone? Yeah. Perfect. So I'm just going to share 2 seconds there now. So this is a rewrite your day meditation. Just if meditation isn't your thing, I suppose just give it a go. If you want to close your eyes and sit back and relax and just enjoy the meditation as well, if you do on a daily basis as well, because this is a nice one just to kind of look more positively at the day to day as well. So I'm just going to put myself on mute and press play. As we begin this guided meditation, start by closing your eyes and begin to settle into your body. Feel yourself sitting still and the connection of the body with the chair or the cushion underneath you. Bring to mind something difficult you've experienced today, either using an event, a general feeling, whatever arises naturally in the mind. As the feeling of your bad day arises, pay attention to what this experience was like. Notice if there's a feeling in the body or any thought process in the mind. Tune in to the overall experience and emotion, and ask yourself how it feels to be having a tough time today. By bringing awareness to this of how it feels, begin to offer yourself some compassion and bring your awareness to how you feel and offering that compassion. Now I'd like you to bring something to mind that has brought you joy or happiness today. See if you can find a moment in which it brought you joy. It may have been when you first woke up, a conversation with a friend or a co-worker, or at the time you were eating lunch and not focused on the difficulties. As we begin to rewrite our day in a positive way, connect with how these good feelings felt. Offer yourself the simple phrase, "May I appreciate these moments," and continue to bring other times in which you experience some joy or happiness during the day. And as each new one comes up, sit with it for a few deep breaths and repeat the phrase, "May I appreciate these moments." Now, as we're coming close to the end of this practice, reflect for a moment on the whole of your day, and recognizing that there will be ups and downs along the journey of life, and trying to rewrite your day in a positive way by focusing on one or two of the good things that are happening along the way. Now focus on your awareness to your breath again, and bring yourself back into the room again, and you can slowly open your eyes again. Now, I hope everyone, all the panelists and all the attendees enjoyed that. I think it was really relevant from the meditation itself to what we're talking about throughout the course of this webinar. So I hope all the panelists enjoyed it. Yeah. Perfect. So I suppose I just want to check the chat again, the Q&A section, just for any more questions. And I'm going to throw out our final question before we finish up. The 50 minutes have gone. We're nearly there to the hour in a second. But I suppose the final question is, do you have one piece of advice for anyone struggling with their mental health or finding it difficult to live life with positivity and hope around these current times, the stressful times that we may face week to week or whatever it may be? So Margaret, I might go to you first. Any one piece of advice, if that's okay. Thanks a lot.
I'll just probably go back to what I mentioned before. It's kind of like, you know, I suppose stick with it. You know, don't be like, don't lie down. You know what I mean? And just, if you can, just try and, you know, get through the bad day that you're having. Now, in saying that, if you need support, look, you know, one of the strongest things you can do for yourself is ask for help. It's not a sign of weakness asking for help. It's actually a huge sign of strength. So if you're in that position where you just feel, okay, I've tried everything I can, really nothing's really working for me, seek help. So there's times when you can't sit with it and wait for things to change, but maybe you've waited too long and you have to make a decision, and you have to look for help outside. So do that. Don't wait when things get that bad.
Brilliant, Margaret. Solid advice. I think it's important just to reach out when you really need it as well. That's so important. So Noelle, we might come to you next, if that's okay. One piece of advice, or anyone out there?
Yeah, I think for me, accept where you are, you know, accept where you are now, and I suppose work towards where you would like to be, you know. There's no rush, there's no, you know, time limit on it. I think if you can accept it, then that can help you to make those small positive changes for yourself. And if you accept it, it'll free you from being so judgmental, like Margaret was talking about earlier, on yourself. And that, you know, there is hope. There is always hope. We hope for everything in life, you know. We hope for, my hope to win the lottery, you know, my hope that's going to be sunny tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? But it's like, you know, that's what keeps us going. So to me, is accept where you are. It's okay, you know, and just hope and know that there is hope, and things will change.
Yeah, I really like that, Noelle. It's just latching on to any sort of glimmer of hope on a particular day when we're not feeling the best, and one or two positive things that are going well, and they try and focus on them really, and less of the negative stuff. And it's slowly over time, I think the mind kind of reframes in a more positive way, but it still can be very difficult. Margaret, you have your hand up there. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, just a little bit, just popped into my head. And, you know, we're always saying learn to say no. And that's true. And we do. There are times when we need to say no, but also I think there's times when we need to say yes, and be open to new experiences and not be frightened. And that in itself can be really difficult to do if you're stuck in a rut. So a little bit like Noelle was saying earlier, joy, accepting joy into your life. And part of that has to be a yes. So say yes to joy, try and find it where you can. And it doesn't have to be expensive or time. As I said, a minute out in the garden, literally during my lunchtime, listening to the birds, it was like plugging into a positivity network. It really just helped. So yeah, learn to say yes to the right things, and learn to say no to the things that don't bring us joy.
Brilliant, Margaret. We might go to Mags next, if that's okay. One piece of advice, and for anyone struggling with their mental health. Thanks.
Yeah, I think being honest. We have a thing here in Ireland, you know, somebody, how are you today? And we all say we're grand. You know, you could do stats and that 9 out of 10 will say that they're grand. I think being honest, if you're having a bad day, and if it's a friend that asks you, just say, you know, I'm not having a good day today, and maybe just talk it out. Like we all have, as I said, bad days, and if somebody asks you, how are you today, just to be honest about it. And I suppose it's being honest with yourself as well. And maybe, I suppose, reflect back on your morning or whatever. If you're not having a good day, thinking, could I find something that went to miss or something? But if somebody asks you, yeah, be honest, I think.
Lovely. The great stuff, Mag. So important as well. And finally, Mike, you might come to yourself.
Yeah, you're asking the right fella now. For years, I would have looked at in magazines and newspapers where they might have a profile, a mini interview with somebody, with different celebrities or pop stars or politicians. And they always ask the question, what's the best bit of advice you ever received? And any of those I would have read, I would have said, God, that's fantastic. And 30 seconds later, could I remember what it was? Not a clue. But the only one I could remember was, there was an individual, and he was asked, what's the best piece of advice you ever received? And he says, My father used to always say, never eat anything bigger than your head. And I thought, and it's the only one I can remember, but I think it's brilliant because somewhere in that, all of the advice in the world is useless. So we need to look at ourselves for our advice, you know, because like if that's the only one of all these profound statements is never eat anything bigger than your head, advice really isn't much use. You know, so other than I know I've undermined everything that everybody has said here. So I'm going to continue with a bit of advice. So all I can say is look inwards rather than outwards for advice. You know yourself best. So look at your strengths, look at what you enjoy, look at self-compassion, be kind to yourself, and figure out your own advice, you know, because otherwise you'll be eating stuff bigger than your head. You know? So I better stop. Thanks, Cillian.
Thanks a million, Mike. Solid advice, I think. It's just, like you said, it's just looking inward and look. I think we all have the questions or the answers to the problems that we face. If we just maybe sit in silence for a while or journal our thoughts or whatever it may be, I think the answers are always in our head. We can, I suppose, get in the midst of ruminating on different thoughts or ideas, but if we can figure out what's going on or have that self-awareness around it as well, it's really, really important. So thanks, Mike, for that. And thanks, Mags, Noelle, and Margaret as well for your fantastic contributions today to the webinar. I'm just going to double check there's no further questions. Someone has said in the chat, how about a very large Easter egg, Mike? Perfect. Thanks a million. So what I'm going to do now is just share our upcoming events. Give me 2 seconds. Just going to share the slides again. So let me know if you could see this. Anyway, I'm just going to play from the current slide. Can you see this? Yeah. That's great. So that's obviously, we have our online community workshop still ongoing. So this is our April timetable. And if you would like to book on to any of our workshops, you can either contact myself, Cillian.Keane@hsc.ie, or Margaret.Keane9@hsc.ie, or even go on to our Eventbrite page, midwestaries.eventbrite.ie, and you can see all the workshops in our upcoming webinar for next month as well. So a range of different workshops on Let's Talk Resilience, our self-care series, exploring anxiety and managing anxiety, and Let's Talk Depression and Let's Talk Resilience as well. We do have our hsc.ie/MW ARIES as well. Our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube channels are all there at Midwest ARIES. I do have different guided meditations. If you like the one that was in this webinar that we just did, that will be uploaded over the next couple of days as well on the YouTube channel. So do subscribe to our YouTube channel or follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. And it'd be great to get a subscription. And the next thing then is our next webinar, and that will be in partnership with Mental Health Ireland again on the 27th of April. It's usually always on a Wednesday afternoon, the last Wednesday of the month. So it's on the same time, 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. and it'll be a panel discussion just like this as well. So the topic is Let's Talk Anxiety. So you can sign up through Eventbrite as well. So our monthly webinar and podcast link will be on Anchor. It will be on YouTube. This webinar will be uploaded, and then the audio file will be on anchor.fm as well. So you can catch up in your own time. I think I've covered everything there. Just with the feedback form, the next slide is obviously Claire Flynn. She's partnering us with the Mental Health Ireland side of things for these webinars. So that's her information as well if anyone wants to have it. But that's another thing. mentalhealthireland.ie is the website as well. So I'm just going to stop the share. And Margaret has put in the feedback form, much appreciated, Margaret, just for just how you found today's workshop, as it just helps us improve and progress on the workshop and the webinars going forward. So I'd just like to say thanks to everyone. Thanks to Mike, Mags, Margaret, and Noelle for being panelists today. All of our attendees, it's been just a great discussion. So hopefully you took something beneficial from today. Just Robert has put in the chat, brilliant session. Thank you, Cillian and panel. It's just great. So thanks a million for the feedback. Great stuff. And yeah, I'll leave it at that, I think. So I just want to say thanks to everyone. Does anyone want to say a quick goodbye? Margaret, yeah? Yeah,
just want to say thanks very much. Thanks, Cillian, for taking the chair today. It was absolutely brilliant. I knew we're in safe hands. It was great. Really enjoyed the discussion. the only thing I'm going to bring from this now is that one piece of advice that Mike said about not eating anything bigger than my head. So, and it brings back again to what Noelle said, humor is everything. If you can laugh at something and mostly at yourself, then you're going to be okay. So listen, whatever you do, Ollie, I hope you have a really good day, and we hope to see you next month. But yeah, thanks.
Yeah, perfect. Mike, yeah.
I suppose, well, all I can say, as long as the Easter eggs are smaller than your head, tuck in. Have a good one. Take care. Good luck.
I'm like Margaret, that's what I'm taking away from today. That'll be in my head for the evening now. Yeah, I really enjoyed the discussion. So thanks so much. And thanks, Cillian. Yeah, great job. Thanks, everyone.
Perfect. And Mags, do you want to say a quick goodbye there before we go?
Yeah, the one piece of advice. Yeah, thanks very much for that, Mike. Yeah, it was a great discussion. Yeah, thanks, Cillian.
Perfect. We'll see you all again soon. Thanks a million for tuning into the webinar. See you later. Thanks a lot.